I mean, first, I would think a lot of people in here that have gotten some of these buttons. Well, these are some of the original ones here when I was doing colors and clear buttons. Um, First, thank you. Um, for me, it obviously just like everybody, it's putting in some time, but I would think my time is pretty insignificant compared to the amount of time it takes to actually sew these buttons and especially create the masks, scrub caps, or sorry, headbands, that sort of thing that they go on to. So I really appreciate that people are, multiplying the small effort I'm putting in to make a button into, things that are actually going to the frontline workers. So I've looked at this as more of an effort of helping everybody that's helping people to help type of thing. So thank you. Um, so I guess just there's been, people were kind of asking about the backstory of how this all started and why buttons. So I'll talk about it a bit more after, but I run a company where we make small wooden parts and that sort of thing for robotics kits. And obviously, our biggest clients are people we try to sell to is the education system. So, I mean, here in Ontario, we had a strike going on, and then obviously a complete shutdown of everything. So, needless to say, things were slow with especially my laser, this thing behind me. Um, but what I decided to do at first was I was going to make, PPE like face shields. A machine like this can cut plastic and wood and leather and all fabric, all kinds of things, and engrave on it. Um, but the problem with making face shields was there was a lot of people trying to do it, which is great, and finding the material was next to impossible. I mean, it still is pretty much sold out everywhere. So I was probably going to be about 2 weeks out. This is kind of end of March from being able to, or I think right around the beginning of April, I was going to be 2 weeks before I could even get my hands on material. So in the meantime, there was some people on the local, just on Facebook and some of the groups talking about not being able to find buttons locally. Like, hey, anybody know where to get some? The stores don't have them. And so I had some, and that's where I showed them here, the just bits of like blue and pink, things like that, just kicking around my shop. So I said, hey, I'll make some buttons. I mean, part of our product is these little motors, and the end of the disc that goes in the motor is pretty much a button. So I mean, I was already making parts like that. So I decided to make, I think, a couple hundred for somebody and said, yeah, you can have them. And then I worked with a local maker store called Rustically Sign. They were donated a bunch of fabric to make headbands. And same thing, they said, hey, do you want to make buttons? I do some work with them. So I think I made a couple thousand, and good old social media. People started sharing and that sort of thing. So I started getting some requests, probably some of you in the group. I realized pretty quickly I needed to get organized. So I started using the Make Stuff Move website. I set up a product page so that we could, sell the buttons, that they're free, but at least cover the shipping costs. And I think I set that up on, it was like April 6th on a Monday afternoon at 2 o'clock or something. I set the page up and shared it. And by the morning, I had orders for 40,000 buttons. So that was a bit of a surprise. Um, and then the last order that came in was one from Leanna Canada Sews saying she needed 60,000, thinking I would, choke and die pretty much on a number like that. But based on the 24 hours, it was not wildly surprising. And to me, it just meant there was that many of you that were actually making stuff. So it was great. So I wanted to find a way to pull it off. So the way it works, I'll just kind of talk about the process. So I have this machine. It's off right now because it's kind of loud if I have it on. It's Laser Engraver, it's called. So it's got a lid. It opens up. You can probably see it in the back corner there. That's the actual head. So the way this actually, it's pretty much just a really, well, expensive light bulb, we'll call it. It's in the back of the machine, and it actually bounces the light through little mirrors. So this thing moves around behind me here and bounces the light to the front and then down. So it's really maybe we'll call it a glorified laser pointer. And what that does is I drop in a sheet of acrylic. So this is one of the finished sheets. So I take a piece, in this case, it's 24 by 16. I think at this point now there's been 220 of these or 240 of these sheets done just in my shop alone, let alone other people's shops. And that takes about an hour, maybe a little bit longer to do. So what it does is it goes back and forth really quickly across the sheet and engraves the actual message into the buttons. So that's where we're seeing like the the thank you. I think that's backwards. Like I say, there were some of the colored ones. So it etches into the acrylic to do that part. And that pass takes about 12 minutes. And then it does the cutting, which is slower because it's got to get through the material. So right now, if I have a good day, I can do, let's say 4,000, maybe 5,000 in a day. I mean, the advantage be that I'm just working I just have a shop in my garage. So I can kind of load the machine, do other work, so that sort of thing, let it run for an hour, set a timer. When it's done, I come out, pop out the sheet, and reload and keep going. What's been really great about all this is, the amount that everybody's come through, even on the production side. I've had people help with getting material. I've had a few companies. One of them is a local lumber yard, Arksy Lumber in town. I originally donated wood, so I didn't show one of those. But originally, I actually was making them out of wood because, especially with the original shutdown with COVID-19, it was very hard to get material, and I had to go a lot further to get the acrylic, whereas the wood was kind of readily available. But we talked to some hospitals, that sort of thing, and the plastic was just the better way to go. The wood's considered hard to disinfect. There's a company out of Toronto called Piedmont Plastics donated at this point, I think 800 pounds of acrylic. I mean, it was, like I say, I've done about 230, let's say, of these, and probably had, that constitutes about 100,000 buttons. About a week ago, I got over that mark in my own shop. But we've done about 150,000 total. So I've had other shops helping out as well. And before I forget, I'll mention, if you go to makestuffmove.com/buttons. That's the page that was set up where people could order, but also where I've told the story, and the most important part, where I've given credit where it's due. So all of the people have supplied acrylic material, the people helping to deliver, like Canada Sews and Rustically Sign, another place in Lindsay called Fermented Cellar, and then of course all of the other people donating time on their lasers to help cut buttons as well. I see somebody typed it in. Make stuff move, not hat. There you go.
Okay.
So yeah, check it out. There's been everybody that's been helping out's obviously got their hearts in the right place, and they've been good enough to help. Some of them, one guy's out in Alberta. We've got Ottawa, Newmarket, Lindsay, Ajax. So I've had about 6 different people with lasers. A lot of the time, a couple of them are larger businesses, but I mean, most of the time it's people like me that work in their garage with a laser. It's a really great tool because you can do things like make buttons and engrave things, and there's a lot of interesting things you can pull off with this. So for me, it was my regular business. I make weird things. I have a company called Invent Art. Usually that's the way I word it with people, and they say, "What do you do?" I say, "If it's weird, I'll do it." But then it was the big thing that kind of was the driving force behind this. I'll pull one of them out here. So I have these little toolboxes. So this is when I'm talking about a disc in the end of a motor. It's a thing called a servo sock that I came up with.